Good afternoon, happy Sunday. Once again, we are here with a wonderful cook-along live. This week we are going to be doing some pumpkin spice cupcakes. Smell that? It's fall. So it's time to make some awesome pumpkin spice cupcakes. I've got some pomegranates here. If we have some time, I might show you how to break one of these things down so you can get some of the seeds in. Let's get started. We're going to get our oven cooked, set up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are in Europe or somewhere else where they don't use Fahrenheit, they use gas or Celsius, you're going to have to do the conversion on Google. I'm sorry. All right, let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to grab our butter. I hope you guys saw my Instagram story where I told you to kind of let this come up to room temperature, because that is something that we definitely want to do. We want our 6 ounces of butter into our mixer. There we go. And along with that, we're going to put in our 2 and however many cups of sugar, and we're going to cream these together. Now, we're going to start this off low and just kind of get them mixing, you know, getting them to know each other. Not going to go too crazy, just a little bit. And we're going to slowly kind of ramp this up as we go. Absolutely. Hey everybody, how's it going? How's your weekend going? What are you all drinking? I'm drinking water today. I've got a pretty massive headache right now. I don't know why. I didn't have anything to drink yesterday, so kind of curious as to why I've got a headache, but just trying to get rehydrated. So if I faint, yes, call 911. I think I'll be fine. But we're creaming this all together, so we're getting all of the butter and sugar together. If the butter is too hard, you're going to start chopping the butter and it's not going to integrate very well. Don't do this at too high of a speed. I think the most we're going to go up is one more notch, right about here, and just really kind of getting it light and fluffy. That's really what we want to do. We'll let that go for just a second. And then while we're waiting on that to go, we're going to come over and grab a couple of eggs. Looks like I've got my eggs right here. And we're going to be putting these guys in one at a time. I'm actually going to turn this down just a little bit. And let me actually stop this. You'll notice that as this is all creamed, it's all very light and fluffy. It's not looking like cream, but it is looking like it's, you know, very nicely integrated. And that's what you're looking for. Something where you've got basically almost looks like wet sand. If you've ever gone to the beach, I'm sure a lot of you have, and you see wet sand, this is kind of what the texture and the consistency that you're going for is. Just kind of wet sand consistency. You can kind of mold it into different shapes if you need to. And once it gets to that consistency, we're going to go ahead and start adding our eggs one at a time, and we're going to let them just beat together until it's smooth. So we'll get one egg in there. We'll just turn this on low. And then while this is running, as soon as that first egg kind of is incorporated, we're going to go in with our second one. And again, you just want to kind of let this go at a low pace. You don't want to get this going too fast. How many of y'all are cooking along with me? I'm actually interested because this is a really fun one. These cupcakes are delicious. I actually took a batch to a socially distant picnic that my office put together on Friday, and they went like hotcakes. Everybody loved them. So I'm curious if anybody is cooking along live with me right now, or if maybe you guys are planning on doing this a little bit later. But I can definitely guarantee these are a treat. We'll get cupcake. We'll get egg number 3 in there right now. Now, if the eggs are cold or if the butter is cold, they just don't integrate as quickly and as smoothly. So everything we want at room temperature, and we just kind of want to get everything going smoothly and slowly. And you might hear my cat in the background, wondering what all the noise is. You'll notice how fluffy all of this is getting. I'm actually going to stop it again. And see, look at how creamy and kind of fluffy everything in here looks. This is what you're going for. This is almost like a very airy marshmallow kind of consistency. That's what we're really going for on this. If you've ever beaten eggs and you get them to kind of like soft peaks, it looks very similar to that. And that is what you want. We're going to go ahead and just scrape off what I just scooped up. Get that going on low again. Now, if you whip it too fast, it's not going to cream the right way. It's not going to be fluffy like this. It's actually going to turn into kind of like a, it's going to get thicker. It's not going to be what you're looking for. All right, so we'll go ahead and get that stopped. And while we're waiting on that, I'm just going to do this. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to take our flour. You should have 2, I think, 1/4 cups of flour. That might not be the right measurement. I'm going off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that. We're going to take all of our spices. So our pumpkin spice, our baking powder, cinnamon, ginger, baking soda, and salt. We're going to get them all mixed together. You just go ahead and put them all in the same bowl. And what we want to do with those is just take a whisk and very quickly integrate them together. Make sure that they're thoroughly mixed. And all this is going to do is ensure even combination once they go into the mixer. And you can use a hand mixer. I'm using a stand mixer just because that's what I've got. But if you've got like a little hand mixer, that's totally fine. The steps are exactly the same, except instead of having the paddle like this guy here has, you're going to be having just like a normal, normal mixing tines on the end. But they should cream everything together just fine. Just make sure you go on low and make sure you get it very well incorporated. Cool. So we got all of our spices combined over here. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to turn this on low and keep it on low and just scoop this in a couple scoops at a time. And wait for it to get mixed in and integrated. Now, as this is integrating, you're going to notice that the batter essentially is going to start getting really, really thick. We're actually going to also start incorporating our buttermilk. So kind of like a couple of scoops of this until it starts thickening, about 1/4 or maybe even 1/2 of the cup of buttermilk, and then more of the flour and then more of the buttermilk. So we're going to kind of alternate this until we get it all incorporated. You'll notice that it's getting really, really dry kind of around the edges. So I'm just going to go ahead and start incorporating my buttermilk, just very, very slowly, drizzling it in. Adding my wets. It's about a 1/4 of it. And we're still mixing, we're still incorporating. We'll go ahead and add a little bit more of our flour mixture. A little bit more of our buttermilk. And by putting this on low, we're not kicking flour up everywhere. If you have this going like, on top speed and you start adding flour, you're just going to have a dust cloud coming out of your mixer. Not ideal, not really what you're looking for. Really just want to focus on getting everything combined as smoothly as you can. It's okay if it gets a little bit too wet. It's okay if it gets a little too dry, although you will be making your mixer work a little bit harder, but there's nothing wrong with it necessarily. This just makes sure that you don't have clumps sticking into the paddle or your tines if you're using like a normal mixer attachment. It's making sure that it stays loose enough and smooth enough that you're not ending up with clumps in there. Just go ahead and add the rest of our milk. like so. Yes, please, my wets. Go ahead and get the rest of our dry in there. I'm just going to set this aside, out of the way. And then last but not least, we're going to be putting our pumpkin in. And same thing, like we've got our batter going pretty well. This is kind of a combination of wet and dry. If you've had it out at room temperature, you might be noticing a little bit of kind of pooling kind of happening at the top here with some water. It's all good, don't worry about it too much. Go ahead and add it in a scoop at a time and let it just kind of slowly mix until it's all incorporated. You'll notice that you're going to get a really nice orange hue with your batter. And you're going to have the awesome aroma of fall. And kind of a precursor to Thanksgiving, really. Because this is almost like a pumpkin pie, which is honestly probably my favorite dessert. I love cheesecake, I love pumpkin cheesecake, but nothing beats a pumpkin pie, in my opinion. Alright, I lied. Maybe a pumpkin cheesecake will beat a pumpkin pie. I do like cheesecake. Alright. That out of the way. And we'll go ahead and just set this there for now. This all looks good. I'm going to just kind of, you may notice up here on the sides, I've got a couple of little bits of pumpkin kind of sitting around here and kind of coming around. I'm just going to kind of scrape these down into the main part of the bowl. And you might even just drop the bowl or lift up your mixer if that's the style you have. And just kind of scoop everything away from the sides and up into the middle. Because these paddle attachments, unless you have the ones that have like the silicone lining on the outside of them, don't get everything. Don't really kind of, you know, they don't scrape all of the bowl. So we're going to go ahead and kind of give it a little bit of help. Just scoop everything kind of up from the bottom into the middle and down from the sides. And I'm just going to run this for just a sec just to get it out of my way on this side. And then we'll scoop down from here as well. And then, of course, if you have anything up on the actual paddle, just kind of scrape it off the top. Usually when you're pouring from the top, that stuff just kind of sticks into the paddle. So this won't take very much longer to incorporate everything that we just did into itself, but we just want to make sure that we get everything mixed up very well. A little bit off of this side because I it up a little bit. There we go. Now, if you're okay with eating raw eggs, a chance to taste it. That tastes like the holidays. And we'll get this back on low. And here we go. Anybody who's watching on Facebook, I noticed that if you go to the page, if you go to the Robert Sogomonian Streams Facebook page and just watch the video that's there, you won't be able to chat with us. However, if you click on the video itself so that it actually opens up kind of in like a full screen mode, it'll have a chat box over on the right-hand side. You'll be able to chat there and we should be able to see what you're saying. So if you're having issues with chatting, give that a shot. And I'm not sure if the watch party that I started actually works with Restream or not. Kind of gave it a test today. We'll see what happens. Here we go. We'll go ahead and just pop our batter off. And I'm going to show you a neat little trick so that you don't have batter all over the sides of your muffin tin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of get all of the batter off of the paddle attachment. Yeah, you're right, Stu. I don't have one of those. No. I try to be. I mean, I know it probably doesn't make sense because I do a lot of cooking, but I do try to be fairly frugal when it comes to the things that I have in my kitchen. If there's an easier way to do it, not super expensive, I'll for sure go for it. But I'm kind of the Alton Brown school of thinking where I don't really want unitaskers, I want more multitaskers. Let's set that over on the side. Now, I know Etienne's going to hate me because I'm using plastic bags. However, I'm going to take one for the team and just let him be mad at me for a day. What we're going to do is we're actually going to make a makeshift piping bag is essentially what we're doing. We're going to take all of our pumpkin spice batter that we have in here. We're going to pour it into the bag. We're going to clip off the end, and then we're going to pipe it into the actual muffins. And what that'll do, this is thick enough that it's not going to like flow very easily. You're still going to have to add a little bit of pressure to kind of get it coming out of the piping bag. But it gives you a lot more control over how much you're adding to each muffin, paper, and also we'll keep it very much controlled over, using a spoon to kind of dollop things. I usually end up with bits of batter all over the actual tray, and then those are the bits that get burned and never quite clean off the way that you want them to. We're going to fill our Ziploc here about 3/4 of the way. We'll lift it up and see if we can get some more in there as well. This works with anything that is thick but not super runny. So if you like to make muffins in the morning, blueberry muffin mix works great with this as well, because it's usually maybe a little bit more viscous than this, but not much. Wouldn't work super well with pancakes. If you're going to do pancakes, it's a little bit more watery, a little bit more runny. I recommend getting one of those clear plastic like ketchup bottles and filling that up with your batter, because then you can control it a little bit easier. This piping bag hack kind of gives you a little bit more control, but it still takes a little bit of finagling. And then the problem with those small plastic containers is the tip. You'd have to cut off like a lot of the tip to make sure that you're actually working it right. Cool. So we got all of this. You'll notice I folded the edges down. Now I'm folding the edges back up. I'm going to zip it up most of the way and just get as much of the air out as I can. And then seal it. Perfect. Get that out of the way. Now I've got a choice. Which side do I want to use? You'll notice there's a little air pocket in both sides. I'm just going to go ahead and use this one because it's on the bottom, like so. And give yourself, about a 1/4 inch. And it's going to start kind of peeking out, but that's all good because you can just move it right over to your first. And if it dribbles a little, no worries. Let me see if I can adjust this guy and move this, and you'll notice I just dribbled all over it because I'm trying to do 3 things at once. But essentially what you can do is now just pipe out of the bag, and you're supposed to fill these like 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up or whatever. Well, cool, there's all done. Stop it, next. And if I wasn't worried about moving a camera around so that you guys could see this a little bit better, I would not have dribbled on this at all. So at home, you guys should be having a much better time of this. There we go. And this is going to make 24 cupcakes. So yes, filling these like 3/4 of the way is probably preferred, or 2/3 of the way, whatever you'd normally do for cupcakes. You're not going to fit all of this batter into 12 cupcake wrappers. And this also ensures that you're getting all of the mix out of like whatever measuring cup you're using. Usually if I'm using a measuring cup or a spoon or something like that, there's always some stuck, and it's just a pain to try and get that off. This way works much nicer. And my oven went off, so I am at preheated 350 Fahrenheit. I'm going to go ahead and toss these straight in. Once I'm done piping, and we'll get them cooking. Now all I have to do so that this doesn't like keep running is just turn it upside down. Any extra I can just kind of scoop off with my finger, put it into any of these muffins that didn't quite get enough. That kind of off. Go. And of course, if you're got a little bit extra on your hands and you're okay with raw eggs, again, get a nice little tasting of what your muffins will taste like. Cupcakes when they come out. Yes. Mom, also, with the deviled eggs, 100%. And I see you giving me the stink eye, Etienne. Now, the cool thing is, you can reuse these. So if you're making a bunch of muffins, if you're making a bunch of stuff here and you're just like, I want to do like 3 or 4 batches of these because I'm doing them for a party, you can just rinse the bag out. And with the hole in the bottom, it actually makes it a lot easier because all of the batter inside will run right through that hole in the bottom. And then you can just kind of fold it over, use a chip clip or something to just kind of keep it closed and just do the same thing. Fill it with batter, unclip it, and go right back to it. So these are multiple use, although I do understand that they're not necessarily as environmentally friendly as you'd like. Hey Siri, set a timer for 25 minutes.
5 minutes.
Cool, so we're gonna let Siri do that, and we are going to switch over to our sink cam, and we are going to kind of rinse things off and get ready to make the frosting, which is our next step. So here we are at the sink cam. You might have noticed my new transition. Last week I tried something out and I was told it looked like a sporting show transition. So I swapped it up, made it a little bit more cooking friendly. And I'm gonna see if I can swap out that image with whatever I'm cooking. So you might have noticed it was a cupcake. Whatever we make next week, I'll swap it out with that so that we can do those transitions and have a little bit of fun. So all I'm doing, really, I mean, it doesn't take very much water or anything to get the mixing bowl kind of cleaned out. A lot of what was in there is just kind of liquidy itself. So giving it a real quick rinse. I'll dry it off with my towel, and then we'll go right back and start with our frosting. Frosting's pretty easy. It's really just cream cheese, which, again, hopefully you left it out at room temperature, because if it's cold, it's not going to mix very well with the copious amounts of sugar that we're going to be adding to it. And the sugar actually accomplishes a couple of things. Not only does it sweeten it, but it also thickens it up. So if you want a thicker cream cheese frosting, add more sugar. It will make it sweeter. So you could also kind of have the amount of cream cheese that you're putting in there. However, either way, if you put in less cream cheese or if you add sugar, it's still going to be sweeter because you're going to have a higher percentage of sugar in there, but it'll thicken it up nicely. If you want it to be a little bit thinner, if you want a nice kind of creamy, more creamy, I guess, more viscous than what the default is, you can add a little bit of milk once you're done adding the sugar and just kind of thin it out a bit as you're going. I'll switch back here, get that there, perfect. Awesome, so that's in there. It's going for about 25 minutes. If you want a softer muffin, go for like 22, maybe even 20 minutes. If you want a more roasty muffin, a little bit more dry, cook it for a little bit longer, 25, 27 minutes. Start with one batch and then add a couple of minutes if you want it to be darker. That makes sense. And you can check it just by like peeking in and closing it again, and yeah, get to where you want to be. Cool, so let's start with our frosting. We're gonna take one whole thing of cream cheese. We'll go ahead and do this. One whole thing of cream cheese. Again, you want this to be room temperature so that it's nice and soft and pliable. I'm gonna get that into our mixing bowl. And we're gonna add a little bit of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons if I remember correctly. Again, just kind of going off of my memory on that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this powdered sugar. I've got a bunch. I'm just going to reuse my spoon because it doesn't really matter. This is all going to go together. I'm just going to put in like 2 large heaping spoonfuls in there. Now, what I forgot to rinse was my paddle. Let's go ahead and swap back over here. Same kind of thing, just give it a real quick rinse. Everything that's on it is fairly liquidy, so it shouldn't take too much work to get it rinsed off. And then we'll just dry it off with our towel and get it ready for mixing. Back over here. Doesn't have to be super dry. We're making frosting, so a little bit of extra moisture is not going to kill anything. Go ahead and get you set up. And same thing. We're going to get this on. We're going to get it on low. We'll get that set up the way that it was. And really what we're doing is just mixing the cream cheese together with everything that's in there. Let's let that go for a sec. We're also going to add our butter. Should be a ½ cup. And again, this should be room temperature so that it mixes nicely. Set this over here. And everything's creaming pretty well. You'll notice that there are some dry spots down at the bottom, but that's fine. We're going to go ahead and grab our spatula and scrape it up. Go ahead and give that a stop. Beat everything out. Give it a quick mix. It's on just for a sec to move it to the other side. Perfect. We'll just scoop everything out. And I'm scooping everything into the middle of the bottom of the bowl. And everything out of the little openings, the voids in the spatula here in the middle. There we go. Back up. Get it a little bit higher. This one we do want to kind of whip together, so after it starts coming together, feel free to turn it up a bit. You don't need to go full speed. There's no reason to, really. And we'll just slowly incorporate more and more sugar. And again, if you're going too fast, the sugar is just going to dust up and you're just going to end up with, you know, essentially a giant cloud of dust in your kitchen, which is not going to be fun. Now with the cream cheese frosting, we might actually be stopping this and starting it more times than we did with the pumpkin. And that's just because this is a lot drier. It's a little bit more stiff, I guess, than what the pumpkin cupcake batter was. And we're also going to stop to kind of scrape down the sides as well. And Etienne has a very good point there. So if you are doing keto, you can definitely do that. Or, I mean, these are not keto cupcakes, but if you wanted a lower amount of sugar response, lower amount of calories, you can absolutely use the substitution. I mean, I think it's 1-to-1 usually, right? Pretty sure it's 1-to-1. And you can also get it in confectioner style or powdered style and regular granulated style. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to pause this and scrape down the sides in just a second. Give it a pause. You'll notice that our frosting is getting a little bit thicker, adding more sugar to it. Got a really nice hue because of the cinnamon that we added. It's going to get a little bit more pale with the more powdered sugar that we put in. Now I'm also going to put something in here that I didn't put in the ingredients list, but I thought about it and thought it might make a pretty good addition. I'm going to see if I have any of what I'm thinking about in my pantry, and if so, I'll add it to this round of my frosting, and we'll see how it turns out. There we go. Finger, or if you want to use a knife, you can use a knife, 100%. Scrape down our spatula. There we go. Back up and back on medium. Oh my goodness, it does smell good in here. And that frosting tastes amazing. All right. Thicken this up a bit more. Put on a couple of spoonfuls of sugar to help the medicine go down. I'll just kick it on low. Now, I did put 4 cups of powdered sugar in the first batch that I made. I thought that might have been a little bit too sugary. This time I'm just using 3. And last time I was tasting as I was going because I wasn't sure if the recipe was actually correct or not, because 4 cups of powdered sugar seems like a ton of powdered sugar, and it is. But it turned out really well. I mean, it was sweet. It was definitely sweet, but not overly sweet. And with the kind of savoriness of the actual cupcake, I think it played off really well, but I think it was still just a little bit too sweet. So this time I'm cutting it back by about a cup. But again, you could do like 2 to 4 cups, really whatever you feel. I think you could do 2 to 4 cups and be fine. There we go, and then we'll add the last of our powdered sugar. Now while that's mixing, I'm gonna go check my pantry and see if I have any of my mystery ingredient that I wanna add. Very cool. I will be right back. So let me see, do I have any of what I think? Yes, I do. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you know what goes really well with pumpkin, and it goes really well with kind of the holidays and this whole cinnamony kind of flavor and all of that? Maple syrup. I'm gonna add just a little dollop of maple syrup to this to give it that rich, toasty flavor. And just a little bit more. It'll help kind of thin it down a little bit as well, but we're gonna see how that ends up making this taste. I think that'll make it like really, really holiday. I'm not gonna add very much, maybe like a tablespoon. Do like, and of course you want to use real maple syrup. Don't use that Aunt Jemima garbage sugared water. Get that incorporated. And then very similar to what we did with our pumpkin, we're going to use a slightly smaller bag, but we're going to do the same thing with our frosting. And then you can just pipe it right on top of the cupcakes and smooth it out. It works really, really nicely. Again, you can reuse these bags for further piping if you want to. So it's not a total waste. I usually reuse my plastic bags a couple of times before they get to the point where I no longer want to use them. All right, I'll scoop everything kind of out of the spatula here, or the, yeah, I guess it is, the paddle. Give it one more mix, and then our frosting is done. There we are. Back up, back in the mix. And really, I'm only doing this to make sure that it's all incorporated. You could 100% just like hand whisk it afterwards. And we're good. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer?
Timer has 51 seconds left.
All right, cool. We've got about 10 minutes on those. I'll go ahead and swap back over to here. And the dog heard somebody outside, so he's protecting us. Now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with our pumpkin filling. We're going to go ahead and pop open our bag. We'll fold over the top just once. It'll help it hold its shape. And then just find some kind of a bowl where you can like let it stand. And then we're just gonna, hey, calm down. Calm down, dog. Calm down. No. Hey. Stop it. Stop. Stop. He's very upset. Somebody's outside having fun without him. All right. Now, I like using a silicone spatula to scrape out of these bowls just because you can get a lot of stuff off of the sides that if you're using a wooden spoon or a metal spoon, you're going to have streaks. But with these silicone spatulas, you can really just kind of like squeegee things off, and it works really well. So if you don't have any of these, I'm talking about like not the thick ones that don't bend, but the more flexible ones. I'm just kind of following the piping bag the way that it's falling. And we're going to scoop most of the frosting in. Put our spatula there. Stand it back up and let everything kind of settle to the bottom. And then we will continue scooping the rest of it out. Now, if my dog could come up here and help me, I might have him hold the bag open while I'm doing this and just kind of prop it up. But since I'm a one-man operation, my dog does not have opposable thumbs and would probably eat the frosting anyway. I'm not going to do that. And of course, we got to taste it. That is good. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the sink. Fill it with some water. That way none of the sugar sticks to it. And then we'll get started on a pomegranate. Because sometimes your guests don't want the sugary treat, but they do like the fruit. And same thing, we're going to go ahead and just kind of start closing this off. Get as much of the air out of it as we can, and then seal it. I'm not going to cut this yet. I'm going to wait until my cupcakes come out, but I am going to set it over to the side. Over here, we'll turn off that. We'll grab a little bowl. And we'll get started with a pomegranate. So I've seen a lot of videos on the internet where people take down a pomegranate, and the ones that drive me nuts are the ones where somebody grabs a spoon and starts smacking on the back of the pomegranate to get the seeds out, because you're breaking all of the seeds and you're just getting juice everywhere. I think that's the worst. I think that's the stupidest idea ever. That's, you know, just my opinion, so don't sue me if that's the one that you like using, but I think I have a better way. It takes a little bit more time, but it's not that difficult. First thing you're going to do, come up here to the top where you've got your little flower end, and we're just going to kind of cut that off. Okay, you might expose a couple of seeds, that's totally fine, but really what you want is a flat top, nice flat surface here to cut with. We're going to flip it around, and if you have anything on the bottom, like a stem sticking out or anything like that, you're going to go ahead and trim that off as well. I don't in this case, so we're good. Every pomegranate has several ridges on the outside, and these are basically where the seeds are kind of sectioned inside. If you think of like a cantaloupe, and you know those cantaloupes that have like the lines on the outside, that's essentially what these ridges are. So you want to find your ridges, find the outer edge of the ridge, and go from the bottom all the way down to the top along the ridge. So you're creating a cut from the stem down to the top. Be careful with your hand. I like to put it down and cut most of this on the cutting board and then roll the pomegranate if I need to. And what you should end up with is 5 or 6 different cuts through the pomegranate. You're not going too deep into it. You're only going in about 1/4 of an inch. Maybe not even that much. You really just want to kind of go through the top layer of skin. But you'll end up with, let's see, there's 4. Where's another ridge? There's a ridge over here. And you can do this with even more if you want. Like, you can just totally section this off like an orange. Go. And then last one, we'll do 6 on this side. Where's the ridge? I'll say it's right here. And we'll do it like that. And so I've got 6 cuts around this pomegranate, right? All I have to do is come up to the top here and just kind of start loosening it, just gently peeling it open. Don't worry too much if you feel some of the seeds break inside. It's way less destructive than if you're grabbing a spoon. Number one, cutting through the half of it, so slicing through half of the pomegranates, all of the seeds in there, and then grabbing a spoon and juicing the other half of them. But what we want to do is essentially just kind of peel this bad boy open. You might get a couple of runaways like this guy up here, which you should definitely eat for their insolence. And then we're just going to open this up into the various sections. You can open it up right over a bowl. Anything that's extra will topple off into the bowl. And so here we go. We have got our 6 sections of pomegranate. I'm going to grab all the seeds and just kind of drop them into the bowl. Now these seeds are very, very exposed. Look at that. They're all right here. And let me actually see if I can do something with this bad boy. Bring him a little closer. Maybe switch to a different view. Bear with me for just a second here. That. Get it a little closer. Perfect. You can see that these pomegranates, the slices are all, everything is very exposed. All of the seeds are very much open, out in the open, and ready to go. All you have to do at this point is just start kind of unrolling the pomegranate, and you're exposing all the seeds, and then just use a finger. I usually use my thumb or a forefinger, and you can just literally roll them out of the pomegranate. You keep all of these things together so they're not popping, they're not getting smashed while you're hitting the pomegranate with a spoon. And you can literally just really quickly go through and just kind of roll your fingers around until all of the seeds come out of these sections. Yes, it takes a little bit longer than if you're using a spoon and juicing your pomegranate. However, you will get full seeds, you'll have a full bowl of pomegranate seeds. And if you have 2 or 3 people doing this with you, it takes less than like 5 minutes. Now, one of the other things you can do, now we can actually see that in this pomegranate there are a couple of seeds that are kind of bruised. So I'm just going to avoid them. I'm going to go ahead and grab the ones that are good, just kind of peel them out like this. And anything that I don't want, I'm just going to leave in. Now, this works 90% of the time. There are some pomegranates, very few pomegranates, where you're going to have so much of the pith inside that this doesn't really work very well. It's still a better method than if you're just going to bash the pomegranate, because if you have that much pith in the pomegranate, you're not getting any seeds if you hit it with a spoon anyway. They're all going to juice, and that'll be the end of that pomegranate. If you're having trouble with the pith coming out, or if you just want to make sure you don't have seeds flying all over your house, because sometimes that'll happen, get a small bowl, fill it with water, and do this exact same thing underwater. The seeds don't go anywhere. They'll actually sink to the bottom. Any of the pith that comes out will float to the top. And then it's very, very easy to just kind of filter through, get any of the bits that you don't want to eat out, drain it, and go to town. So this is my preferred method for doing pomegranate. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer? All right, we got about 1.5 minutes. I want to see if I can finish these Or that's done. Probably not, but I should be able to get half of it done. There we go. Roll everything backwards. Good to go. This one. Those little bits of pith would float to the top if I were doing it into a water-filled bowl. And I did for a while until I just was like, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. I can just pick them out of the serving bowl. Not a problem. A couple of bruised pieces, I'll leave them there. This one's got a ton of seeds. We'll just go ahead and roll these guys out. And then, of course, if you get stuck, if things aren't working very well, you can always just kind of peel out the inside of one part of it so that you can get, you know, more of an angle, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You can fold it inside out more, and it'll just make the seeds pop out easier. This works especially well on those gigantic, like, pomegranates that you find at the store. And this is almost kind of like, for me anyway, a little bit meditative. You're just focusing on rolling seeds out. It's like when you make fists with your toes in the carpet, like in Die Hard. Just kind of calms you down. Hey Siri, stop the timer. All right, I'm gonna let that be the end of that, and we're gonna grab our muffins or cupcakes. And those look pretty good. Go ahead and pop these guys out. I'm going to set them on the side. I'm going to let them cool down just a bit before we start with our frosting. And we're going to continue with our pomegranate. So you do want to let your muffins cool. And I'm actually going to, now that I set it, grab a tray that's got like an actual cooling rack on it. And the reason that you want to do that is you want to kind of, if you start putting the frosting on them right now, the muffins are warm enough that the frosting will actually start melting and it won't be possible to spread it. So you want to get these guys out and you want to get them onto something where they can very quickly cool down. We're going to give them about 10 minutes if you're doing this on your own. If I run out of time on my pomegranates, I might jump in a little bit early, but that's fine. Pop them out with a little knife here. Turn this around a bit. When you do a lot of cooking, you end up with asbestos hands and you can touch hot things and not kill yourself. But don't try that at home. Go. Now that muffin tin is ready for more cupcakes. And my cupcakes are out and cooling. Put them over there. Cool, cool. Back to these. I'm just gonna ignore those guys for a second. Let them come down in temperature and just finish with my pomegranates. Any questions about this method with the pomegranates? I think that this is awesome. Yeah, it takes about 5 minutes per pomegranate, but you get whole seeds, you don't get a bunch of juice, you don't ruin half the pomegranate, and you don't bruise anything that's not already bruised. This is also how I will shell a pomegranate if I'm doing something like pomegranate chicken and I want some actual seeds to like sprinkle over whatever I'm serving. This is how you get those seeds out. And I guess we should also start talking about, since it's November 1st, the Thanksgiving special that I'm going to be doing. So I have been kind of giving this a lot of thought, and I'm thinking about doing it. So this year is a weird year. I don't think that a lot of people are going to be getting together with family, at least not as much as normally do. So some of y'all may not be used to doing Thanksgiving on your own. So what I want to do is literally run I say literally a lot, and I'm sorry, but I want to run a stream on Thanksgiving, so next Thursday. I want to start it around noon, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe like 11:30 or 11, and cook what I think are like the top 5 dishes for Thanksgiving. So like turkey, mashed potatoes, maybe a pumpkin pie, or maybe no dessert, Brussels sprouts, cranberry relish, and put it together so that if you're a person who does usually go somewhere where Thanksgiving dinner is kind of made for you, you won't have to worry about it. Like, you can cook along with me. It'll be a super long stream because we'll be cooking a lot of stuff. But the cool thing about Thanksgiving is there's a lot going on, but it's all relatively simple. There's not a lot of difficult things that you have to do on Thanksgiving. So we'll just go step by step. We'll start with the things that need to happen first, do all the timing and everything like that, and you guys will have a full Thanksgiving dinner. Or if you know anybody who is not able to go home or spend time with family for Thanksgiving, this would be an excellent place to bring them so that they can see if they can put together a Thanksgiving dinner on their own. I'm curious what you all think about that, and if you think that that's a great idea. And then, of course, afterwards, each individual segment I would probably turn into its own little, YouTube tutorial video or something like that. So they would be available for Thanksgivings in the future. However, this year, I think it would just be nice to give people a place to go if they don't have family nearby, or if their family is not hosting anything for Thanksgiving because of all of the awesome pandemic stuff that's still going on. I'm curious about what your thoughts are on that. And I'm super comfortable doing that because, yeah, a week-long turkey thaw stream. No, I would probably put some, stuff on Instagram in stories, and I'd probably on the cook along live that Sunday before tell people to, hey, right now is when you get your turkey into the fridge if you're defrosting it. We're not going to do anything super fancy like week-long brining or anything like that. I mean, if you already know how to do that, by all means, go for it. But you can put together a really good Thanksgiving dinner and not have to do a bunch of extra stuff for it. We can make an herb butter that goes on the turkey or goes underneath the turkey skin. It's super simple to do. Same thing with like the red meat and all of that, the dark meat for the turkey. And then on top of that, mashed potatoes are easy. It's just potatoes and butter and cream. Maybe a couple of herbs if you want to put some chives in there. But it's actually not a difficult meal to put together. It's just there's a lot of things, so it definitely overwhelms a lot of people who are not used to doing it. But I think once you do it one time or 2 times, it's like you'll realize how it's just timing and figuring out what order to do things in so that they all come out at the same time, and or know what you can do in advance and then just either keep warm or heat back up later because it doesn't affect the actual meal. But I am curious on your thoughts on that. Good idea? Bad idea? You think that that would be a good thing to watch or put on in the background? Or do you think that there are people who are not able to do Thanksgiving and they would find value in that? I'm interested to know. We're almost done with this pomegranate. And I've got a bowl of delicious pomegranate seeds here for myself. Which is a good thing because I don't like sharing these. And I'll probably peel that one after I'm done with the stream and eat it. That's yummy. You will get a little bit of staining on your cutting board if you do it on a wooden one. However, once you rinse this, the stain will go away. All right, let's start with our cupcakes here. Now, we've already got our frosting done, and we've got our frosting ready to go. Go ahead and get some of these guys over here. They are still warm. They're not hot. They might be a little bit warm for what I would want you guys to do. You should really wait until they're like room temperature. But we'll get started. We'll see what happens. First thing, get a butter knife. something like this, something that has a nice blunt edge. Doesn't matter what the bottom side is. Like this can be sharp or whatever, but you want a nice rounded edge so that you can play around with things. Stuffing would be a good idea. I don't generally cook stuffing because I don't eat it, but it's not hard to do. You could definitely add that to the list. And here's our piping bag of our frosting. We're going to go ahead and just clip off the edge. All right. We're going to make this one a little bit smaller, like a 1/4 inch maybe. Now the frosting is a lot thicker than the pumpkin filling. So this is going to start kind of squeezing out, but it's going to come out a lot slower. So grab your piping bag. You got the end sealed. Put the spout towards the bottom and just kind of grab the top like so and squeeze down. Now we've already got some frosting coming out. All you want to do is put a little bit of frosting in the middle of each cupcake. Like so. You guys can't see what I'm doing because I'm blocking the camera. But you basically want just a little frosting right in the middle of each cupcake. Why in the middle? I'll explain in just a second. You probably want a dollop about the size of, I don't know, a marble, like a large marble. Like so, like so. If you actually have a piping bag and you've got like the cool, flower spouts and all of that stuff, you can 100% use those to make a shape and make a design. I don't, so I'm not. And I'm also not worried about it. I mean, these cupcakes are going to taste delicious anyway. Cool. We got a nice cupcake. This one here, actually, I put a thumbprint in it. So we got our frosting in the middle here. We're going to take the end of our knife and we're just going to press down in the center. And all you have to do is kind of spread the center out. So I'm going to tilt the knife towards, I'm tilting it down towards you guys, and that lets me spread it to this direction. Now I can tilt it the other way and spread it this direction. And now I can just kind of tilt it the direction that I want the frosting to go, and it keeps everything nice and easy, nice and centered. And then you can rotate the cupcake once you kind of got the general coverage done. And the cupcake's a little bit warm, so you'll notice the frosting is melting as I'm going around, becoming very liquidy. As the cupcake cools, the frosting will also harden up a little bit. But there we go. If you put a dollop on the side and try and spread it, it doesn't work the same. If you put it in the middle, you can very evenly coat your cupcake and get good coverage. We'll set that one over there and we'll go on with our next one. Same thing. Just kind of start flattening everything out, rotating the cupcake so that we get some nice even coverage. And there we go. We get everything covered. For 2. Number 3. I'm not going to do all 12 of these, at least not on the stream. I'll do these 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to top these guys off with a little bit of fresh ground nutmeg. Now, if you have a stick of cinnamon, you can use that as well. I don't. I was not able to find any cinnamon sticks before tonight's stream. So all I've got is nutmeg, but either way and or will be an excellent addition to your cupcakes. So there we go. Got some cupcakes. Got a nice piece of nutmeg here that I've been using in the past. Hey Shannon, how's it going? I'm just going to go ahead and dust some of the nutmeg over these cupcakes. Using a little microplane grater. Now the thing with nutmeg is a lot of dust gets kind of left in the actual grater, so make sure you pause every so often and give it a nice little tap to get some of that extra off. And that's basically it. We've got some beautiful pumpkin spice cupcakes for the holiday season done and ready to eat. So I guess I can switch back up to this and show you guys kind of what, I mean, they're normal cupcakes. They're delicious. Peel off the outside. One's still a little bit warm, but holding together nicely. Give it a nice little. Delicious. This is a bite of the holiday season right here. And I've got 23 more to eat, so let's see if I can find anybody to share them with. Annika. The reason I'm using a piping bag is because this keeps everything localized. I'll switch back real quick. This keeps everything centered. If you scoop with a knife, you're going to have things dribbling off the knife. When you put the knife down, you're not going to have a nice centered area to just kind of do circle motions with. You have to really kind of, you end up doing a lot more work. If you have everything centered, it just goes a lot smoother. Yeah, if I had smell-o-vision, I would 100% turn that on for you all. I'll do a quick demonstration here for you. Let me scoop the frosting off of this. I'm actually going to... So. Scoop the frosting off. So we've got no frosting on here. If I grab my knife and dip it into the frosting, number one, this is a lot messier. Now if I come in, a lot of people will start from the side and kind of do this. And it works okay, but you gotta keep going back and forth. And if the frosting if the cupcakes are too hot and the frosting melts too much, it'll start dribbling down the sides of the cupcake. This I kind of accidentally made easier on myself because I teed it up with a dollop in the middle. But since the cupcakes are dry and we're going with a wet topping, it tends to just want to slide off the other side. You can 100% scoop with a spoon. I don't like doing that. I think that a piping bag is a lot easier. You just go and it's on the middle. Scooping with a spoon, it's still stuck to the spoon. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is just the way that I do, that I find works better for me. If you want to use a spoon, totally up to you, 100%. But with this, it's already mostly on the cupcake. All you're doing is just kind of spreading it evenly. And you're done. Also, I can throw the piping bag away or rinse it out and reuse it in the future. And all I have to do is rinse off a knife. If you're using a spoon, I mean, you can definitely spread with a spoon too, I guess, but it's really just a matter of preference. If you would rather use a spoon, use a spoon. I'm not going to stop you. But this is why I like to use a piping bag or a Ziploc bag as a piping bag over using a spoon and a knife or just a knife. For me, it just works a little bit easier. Yeah, hopefully you guys found the cook-along useful tonight. Hopefully this is something you guys give a try. If you didn't already tonight, I hope you guys give this a shot because this is a simple and delicious dessert to make. It scales very, very easily, very well. You can put together 24 cupcakes in the span of, what, an hour, and good to go. Just make sure you got enough nutmeg to give everything a good dusting. And you're good to go. Now, if you wanted to, I went ahead and grabbed the canned pumpkin. It's one of the 15-ounce cans of canned pumpkin. If you wanted to do the pumpkin from scratch, you can. You just get pumpkins, and they actually have pumpkins called, I think they call them sweet pie pumpkins. Like, that's literally the name of the pumpkin. There, I said literally again. Should make a drinking game out of that. You take those, you cut them in half, you roast them. Skin side, like you cut them in half, you put them cut side down, you roast them for 45 minutes in the oven at about 400 degrees. Once you have them roasted, you just switch, you pull them out, you take the skin off, and then you put them through a food processor. And that's how you get the same kind of pumpkin that you would get in the can. That pumpkin generally tends to be a lot more watery, so you may want to let it drain in a sieve or in a colander in the sink, or even maybe in some cheesecloth, so that all the moisture comes out and you're just left with the pumpkin pulp. And remove all the seeds and like the gnarly stuff on the inside before you roast it. You can roast the seeds separately and get a nice little crunchy treat in addition to the pumpkin that you would get. And it's just 15 ounces. So for this recipe, 15 ounces of pumpkin puree or a 15-ounce, 14.9, whatever it is, can of pumpkin, both work very well. So hopefully this was an awesome cook-along for y'all. I'm really hoping you guys give this a try. I was trying to do the camera angles and keep it interesting and show you guys what was going on. Let me know if that worked out for you. If it didn't work, let me know as well so I can change it. If you're not following me on various social media, I'm pretty much everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Pick a social network, I'm probably there. You can look me up by my name, Robert Sogomonian, or you can look me up by my handle, Cyrix, P-S-Y-R-I-X-X. It'll also be on the closing screen. I post the ingredients for these cook-alongs during the week before I do the cook-along. So if you guys are interested in joining me on future ones, I really encourage you guys to jump in and actually cook while I'm doing this. That's the reason that I put this together. And I know you guys enjoy watching. However, it's always fun when you can cook along at the same pace. And I'm never going to do one of those Food Network tricks where I say, okay, now we do this and we put it in the oven. Oh, and I have one already made. That's not the point of the show. I want to be doing this real time with you so that everything goes step by step and you guys are able to cook with me and come out with a dish that's very similar, if not better, than what I'm able to do during the same amount of time. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Facebook, YouTube. YouTube is the best quality for the videos, so I highly recommend you go subscribe to my channel there because you'll get a nice 1080p high definition video that you can actually watch on your TV versus Facebook or Twitch, which are lower res and lower frame rate than what YouTube can provide. So anyway, I will see you guys next week at 4:30 on Sunday for another Cook Along Live. And since we're getting into kind of the fall season, we're probably going to start doing a lot of stews. So I think next week we'll either do coq au vin, which I think was suggested either 1 or 2 episodes prior, because that's a fantastic and easy dish to do, and or just beef bourguignon, beef stew, beef bourguignon. I can't say it. You know what I mean? The Julia Child famous one. And the dog's going crazy. What are you going crazy for? Calm down. Anyway, I will see you next week, 4:30 p.m. Same bat channel, same bat time for another Cook Along Live. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.